Hello, and on this channel many times in the past I've talked about the dreadfully weak punishments of Nazi murderers after the Second World War. In this video I'm going to actually do the opposite. Well, sort of the opposite, because I'm going to talk about the dreadfully weak punishments were given before the Second World War, or really more to the point in Weimar Germany, how Weimar actually allowed extreme right-wing violence to go largely unpunished. The legal institution of right-wing political violence in the Weimar Republic didn't emerge suddenly with the Nazi seizure of power, nor even with the rapid electoral rise of the National Socialist German Workers' Party after 1930. Its foundations were laid in the earliest years of the Republic itself, in the aftermath of the First World War and the revolutionary upheavals of 1918-1919. The German Judiciary demonstrated a pronounced political orientation. Nearly 90% of murders committed by Freikorps units against left-wing workers during this period went unpunished. And when I say actually even left-wing, it may just have been workers who were not politically active. While verdicts were handed down, sentences averaged only a few months' imprisonment. By contrast, prosecutions of communist defendants regularly resulted in long prison terms and, in some cases, death sentences. A contemporary assessment by a Berlin state president estimated that no more than 5% of Prussian judges could be considered committed supporters of the Republic. So therefore, if you've got 95% of the judges who are opposed to the Republic or to the government, it's pretty obvious what's going to happen to those who use violence to overthrow it. Although the most extreme manifestations of this partisan justice diminished over time, the judiciary's fundamental anti-socialist orientation remained intact. Many judges were career officials trained under the Second Reich who never reconciled themselves to parliamentary democracy or to Germany's defeat in 1918. The communist movement continued to be regarded as the primary internal enemy. Police repression, press censorship, and organizational bans disproportionately targeted the Communist Party and its affiliated groups. Although the Communist Party had no realistic plans for a violent overthrow of the state, fear of Bolshevism remained persuasive. At the same time, the growing threat posed by the National Socialist movement was systematically underestimated or downplayed. SA violence was often tolerated and at times implicitly welcomed by investigating authorities as a supposed bulwark against an imagined communist uprising. This asymmetry became increasingly visible in the late 1920s as paramilitary politics intensified. As early as 1927, during trials connected to the clandestine Black Reichswehr, defense lawyers advanced arguments that would later become central to the legal protection of Nazi violence. In the so-called Fememord cases, lawyer Walter Luetgebrune, later a full-time legal representative of the National Socialist German Workers' Party and an SA group leader, argued that killings carried out to prevent the disclosure of secret military structures constituted acts of self-defense. According to this logic, potential informants were traitors whose elimination was justified. Although deeply problematic, this reasoning was not decisively rejected and established an early precedent for reframing political murder from the right as defensive necessity. Now, how did this work in practice? Supposing some organised like the Black Reichswehr or some other extreme nationalist terrorist group thinks that somebody has some information on it, might have seen somebody doing something or something like that, just suspects it. They therefore have the right to go into that person's house, kidnap them, murder them brutally, and then they can claim they acted in self-defense. And there are examples where precisely that happened. And in the case of the future commandant of Rudolf Höss of Auschwitz, it's something, it wasn't quite along those lines, but it seems that he got the wrong person. They tried to they murdered the wrong person, and unfortunately the courts gave very weak punishment as a result, or if any at all, because in this case they're claiming that they acted in self-defense. From 1929 onwards, the National Socialist German Workers' Party began systematically establishing a presence in Berlin's traditional working class districts. SA units were deployed to break resistance and assert control over public space. Social democratic workers generally relied on police protection, at least until the Prussian police leadership was dismantled in 1932, whilst communist milieus increasingly responded with organised counter-violence. So street fighting became endemic, particularly in neighbourhoods such as Kreuzberg and Neukölln. One of the earliest fatal escalations occurred on the 29th of December 1929. As members of the Communist Youth League were leaving their regular bar on Görlitzer Straße in Kreuzberg, SA men from Sturm 27 lay in wait outside. Without warning, they opened fire. 5 patrons were injured. One of them, Walter Neumann, succumbed to his wounds several days later. The perpetrators fled immediately and regrouped at their own meeting place, the Wiener Garten on nearby Wiener Straße, which served as the Sturm's Gasthaus of SA Sturm 27, also the headquarters where they all used to meet. Neumann's death became a defining event in the neighbourhood's political memory. Each year on the anniversary of his death, socialist youth attacked the Wiener Garten with stones and gunfire. Members of the Red Young Front patrolled the area, intimidating Nazi patrons and the landlord. The site became a focal point of escalating retaliatory violence. Approximately 18 months later, the cycle claimed yet another life. At nearby Lausitzer Platz, Hans Hoffmann, a member of the Hitler Youth, was attacked with steel rods and pistols. He was struck multiple times and he died from his injuries. Now, the trials that followed revealed the judiciary's double standards with particular clarity. In the case of Walter Neumann, the SA men of Sturm 27 were, unusually for the time, unable to persuade the court that their prearranged shooting, or ambush even, of unarmed men constituted self-defense. They were convicted of grievous bodily harm resulting in death and sentenced to 3 years and 6 months in prison, which, for an ambush murder, which in all honesty should have carried the death sentence, this was a relatively mild punishment in the circumstances. And when I said it should have carried the death sentence was on the books, but it was used less and less in Weimar Germany. So the principal, the principal defendant in the Hoffmann case, was a communist, and he got a 6-year prison sentence for manslaughter, and this harsher penalty was imposed despite the fact that he was still a juvenile, that the shots were fired in chaotic street confrontation, whereas the attack on Görlitzer Straße had been a planned ambush. I'd have to say, in my opinion, 6 years sentence for manslaughter is pretty weak as well, but there is a difference here between the two, whereas the SA men had actually gone out of their way to kill people, and they got a pathetic sentence as a result. So this extended beyond Kreuzberg, or even beyond Berlin for that matter. On the night of the 17th of May 1930, members of the Germania Weißensee football club were returning home after a night in a pub in northern Berlin when they encountered a group of SA men. Now you can sort of imagine the scene, because both groups being intoxicated and getting a bit violent. There's a verbal dispute, there's abuse of language going one way and the other, and they possibly don't even know who the other group represents, just that they're a different group. There might have been a different group of football supporters, or the SA might have thought that they were communists or social democrats or something. Anyway, whatever happened, the SA men drew their pistols and they fired into the group. 2 of the footballers were killed. One of them was shot in the back whilst attempting to flee. The perpetrators escaped, hid their weapons, but they were picked up and arrested a few days later. Whilst they were in pre-trial detention, they coordinated their testimony through secret notes passed between cells, and thus arranged what they were going to say. But several of them were already known to the police as violent repeat offenders. In court, they claimed that they had believed themselves to be under attack by communists and had acted in self-defense. The judges accepted this argument and acquitted them. The decisive legal basis was paragraph 33 of the Criminal Code, which exempted perpetrators from punishment if they exceeded the limits of self-defense out of confusion, fear, or terror. Now I'm quoting directly there from it. The court disregarded the systematic arming of the SA, the concealment of weapons, and the shooting of a victim in the back. Within months of their acquittal, some of the same men were again involved in violent assaults on leftists launched from an SA meeting place, leaving victims hospitalized after being kicked with heavy boots. Similar reasoning prevailed in September 1930 when an SA Standartenführer fired an illegal rifle from his apartment window after being confronted by communist demonstrators. And a completely uninvolved person who was waiting for his tram at the tram stop was killed. Now, what happened in this case was that the demonstrators that he was noted in his SA involvement. The demonstrators came to his stood outside his apartment block, and maybe out of fear or whatever, he went and got his weapon. But I mean, let's face it, if you're going to fire a warning shot, which he claimed it was in court, then you fire it in the air. You don't fire it at somebody standing at a tram stop. So either he was a really bad shot, or he had meant to hit somebody. As it turned out, he hit the wrong person. Now, the court ruled that the horizontal shot constituted a legitimate warning and acquitted the defendants on the grounds of self-defense. The death of the civilian was treated as tragic but legally irrelevant. In March 1931, a 16-year-old unarmed baker's apprentice who was had nothing to do with anything, was shot dead in Berlin-Schöneberg by an SA man. Now, once again, the court accepted the defendant had acted under fear and terror of communists and acquitted him. By this stage, contemporaries openly recognized the pattern. Emil Julius Gumbel demonstrated statistically that National Socialists were routinely charged with lesser offenders, whilst communists face indictments for murder under comparable circumstances. And it would seem, therefore, and it was noted at the time, that by 1932 the Nazis appeared to operate under a doctrine of permanent self-defense caused by their fear and terror. While not every such defense succeeded, the asymmetry was unmistakable. There's no known case from the Weimar Republic, at least what I know of, in which a left-wing defendant was acquitted on the grounds of putative self-defense. Judges did not necessarily sympathize with the SA as an organization, Many regarded the plebeian violence of the brown shirts with distaste, yet their rulings reflected a bourgeois consensus that viewed the communist movement as the principal threat to internal security. As the National Socialist German Workers' Party grew stronger electorally, sentences against communists became harsher, while SA violence was increasingly excused. I would say that the Weimar Republic offered no equality before the law went as far as what were deemed political crimes were concerned. So it's long before 1933 the Judiciary had already normalized National Socialist violence by repeatedly redefining aggressive political killings as acts of fear-driven self-defense, therefore eroding the Republic from within. Unfortunately, many of these people in the judiciary with the same conservative elitism, they were many of them who entered into the Nazi hierarchy, committed crimes, or judicial crimes, I would say, under Nazism, and then they continued in these positions of power, deciding who's guilty and who isn't after the Second World War. I know I've done videos on that as well. Anyway, so thanks so much for listening. I upload every day at 2000 hours. My time, Central European time, because I live in Poland and Germany. I, on Tuesdays and Fridays, do longer videos like this one, and other days there are short videos of up to 3 minutes in length. And now, because of the amount of AI-generated slop, which YouTube favoritizes, whatever prefers, over genuine researched history, then the only way I think I'm going to manage on this platform is now by doing this via memberships only. And so membership costs £5, €6, $6. It gives you access currently to more than 800 videos which are researched, and maybe they're not as good as some of those with professional speakers done in professional studios and all the rest of it, but the content is far better because I'm giving you the facts and not a pile of nonsensical waffle that the AI gives you. Well, currently gives you. Maybe the AI will learn how to do facts in time. So, if you're interested in membership, then I do encourage you to do that. But for the moment, from me, thanks so much, and bye for now.